Hey everyone, I just want to talk about um, my worst Uber ride ever. I Uber for a little bit. Um, Let me fix this here. I Uber for a little bit, maybe for about 2 months, and I clocked in probably close to 200 rides. And it was a great way for me to make extra money while I was working a job that didn't pay as well, and also made extra money on the weekend or extra money if I needed extra money. And I, I Ubered probably more than 2 months, but I started slowing down once I got my new job. I started slowing down once my finance got a little bit better. But so it wasn't my last, but it was close to my last Uber ride that I ever given, and then I got this really good paying job. But this ride, I live in a super small town, and it's very hard to find passengers to give ride to. So I I was at my gym, my dojo. That's where my office is, and I was working on some design, and a ride pop up that was 10 minutes for me, and I'm like, oh, this is strange. It's a small town, and it was to the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and it was for $300. It was 10 minutes from my house, and usually I would have to make my way probably 30 minutes to the largest town, which is around 50,000 people, and then from there I would Uber my way to Syracuse. That's the only way I can make money as an Uber driver. But in this case today, that day I didn't had to do that. I was at my gym. I wasn't planning to Uber. Just for shit and giggle, I turned on my Uber driver app, and I go, whoa, okay, $300, 3 hours there, 3 hours back. That's about 6 hours, and I can probably make it. I can probably do it in 5.5 hours. And on the way back, I can Uber from Syracuse, Auburn, back home, and clock in another $100. So in other words, for a total of a little bit less than 6 hours, I make over $300. And then after that, I probably can make another $100 Ubering back. And I didn't have to drive very far to pick this lady up. And so I call and I say, hey, are you the only passenger? I was really worried about driving a bunch of people who are drunk or whatever, right? And it was in the day, it was like 2 o'clock in the day. And I think it was a Memorial Day. Yeah, Memorial Day. Yeah. And I picked her up, and it was a nightmare. I picked her up, and she never told me she was loading her car. It was like bags and bags and bags of clothing and knick-knack and stuff. And usually with Uber rides, we just give people rides. We're not like a moving van. So I got really annoyed, and I said, hey, you never told me this. So I had to clean up my trunk. I had a few laptops and stuff, equipment and stuff, because I was still applying for this job, and they needed me to do all sorts of design for them, a sample works to show them that I was capable of doing this job. And so let me double check to make sure my mic is recording here. Yep. And so that was the first sign. And then she told me casually that she has a bladder infection and that she would need to stop at the washroom. And I said, well, how often? And she goes, well, maybe every 45 minutes. Okay. She lied about that, but I'll get back to that in a few minutes. And so I said, okay, I need to pump gas, but let's not pump gas yet, because since you need to get a washroom break every 45 minutes, let's do that. So we went to the gas station, and she couldn't find her wallet, okay? And so she started freaking out, and then she called the rehab center. That's where she was going, is in the Poconos. And she goes, can I still check in without my ID? And they said yes, because she's been there before. But she wanted something to drink. This is where it gets crazy, okay? Like, she wanted something to drink. She was coming off from a 1-week drinking binge, and she's an alcoholic. And the reason why she was going to the Poconos instead of a rehab center closer to where she lived, I live in New York State, is because in Pennsylvania, they allow rehab patients to still vape or smoke cigarette. Okay, now in other places they don't allow any of that, and so she's a chain smoker. She drinks, and so I was like, oh shit. Okay, so she's literally begging me to buy her a beer. Okay, so I said, okay, here, to $6, go buy a beer or something, right? So she went in, and literally this lady is 62 years old, and she looks like in her late 70s, okay? And she's like, okay, well, they won't sell me a beer because I don't have my ID. I'm saying, okay, fine. So I went in, bought her a beer, and she drank it, okay? Then we're searching over the car. She called her, a guy that she was staying with, and they said, no, it's not there. And I was super annoyed because I was already maybe 18 minutes from the house when we were at the gas station. And she found it, okay? But then she couldn't find her knapsack, her backpack with all her other stuff that she needed. This lady was so out of it. Literally, she would be holding on something and be searching for it, okay? I felt really bad for her, but that's just the beginning. So we're driving, and she needs to drink a beer. So she's like freaking drinking in my car because she needs that buzz, right? So she went back into the store, and I bought her like 3, okay? And so she's drinking, she has 2, and she's drinking in my car, which I do not appreciate. But, you know, it's a $300 ride, and I just didn't want to fight with her anymore, right? And I said, okay, keep it in the bag, no open container. When we pull over somewhere, you can drink. That didn't happen. She drank anyways. And we're driving, and literally every 20 minutes, she had to go pee and get a cigarette break. So my whole freaking ride, by the time I dropped her off, instead of 3 hours, was 5 hours. And this is just the beginning. It got even worse. She had a bladder infection, right? And so she ended up peeing in my car, like in the car seat. I was so fucking annoyed. I had to clean the car seat after I dropped her off and everything and sponged it down, okay? But I felt so sorry for her. Like literally, she was crying. She was telling me about her life story. And by the time I left the Pocono, it was 10 o'clock. And I was hoping to finish dropping her off at possibly 8:30. And then from there, 8 o'clock. And then from there, crossed over from the Pennsylvania line back to New York State, and then Uber my way back home. And, you know, and so that day, I would have probably finished with making $400 or $500. So we're driving, and she's crying stuff, but she was very cool. She gave me like a $25 tip, which I thought it was like the bare minimum because the ride took an extra 2 hours longer than it needed. We had to constantly make stop. It got so bad that when we were in Pennsylvania, we were driving on the back, not the back road, but almost the back road, and we couldn't find a gas station. So I pulled into a back road that was heading to a campground, to a private road, and by fucking chance, a car was pulling out, right? And so we pull over, and the car wouldn't leave because the car thinks maybe we're trying to break into the house or whatever. And I was gonna pull over and let her pee outside the car, right? And that didn't happen. So I was fucking annoyed, and then I was worried that the guy was gonna write down my license plate and call the cops on me and say, hey, here's a guy who's trying to break into my house. He drove up my private road, right? So so that was like maybe an hour. We were like an hour from the Pocono then. And so we did a lot of stop. One of the stop, we stopped at a small mom and pop gas station, and we ordered a sub, horrible sub. We ordered some cookies, and then she needed to get vape. She needed to get all sorts of stuff, right? Like, so I felt really bad for her because she had a really, really addictive personality. You know, she couldn't stop vaping, she couldn't stop smoking, she couldn't stop drinking. And drinking was the worst, right? And on top of that, she was like horny, and then she bonded with me, and she wanted to have sex with me. And she's like, let's pull over, let's have sex. And I'm like, nah, you know, you're drunk. You're like this lady who looks like in her freaking 70s, and I was just not into it. It was like the whole vibe was just not there. I mean, I don't have sex with random strangers, and I'm just saying, like, it was just disgusting. I was like, oh my goodness. And it was like, who's this person? Like, why is she randomly, And I think it was just a lot of emotion going through her mind, and I felt really bad for her. This was her third time heading into the Poconos, and I actually text the people, right? And so here, the reason I'm shooting this video is this, okay? The fucking rehab center, they booked the ride, okay? They should have told me, hey, you're driving a passenger to a rehab center. And this rehab center takes in drug addiction, like hard drug addiction, etc. So imagine if I pick up a passenger and they have like major hard drug addiction, like they're like tweaking in my car, or they're screaming, they're crying. I don't want to deal with that, especially a 3-hour ride, right? 2.5-hour ride. And I didn't want to deal with that. And they should have warned me. In the past, I live about maybe 15 minutes from a small sheriff office, and they would book rides for the prisoners, right? And the people they're releasing, and they would let me know, hey, you're coming to a jail, and you're basically giving a ride. You're free to decline this, right? And I wouldn't have to decline it; they would, because if an Uber driver declined after so many times, Uber and Lyft penalize you, right? So they would decline it for me because I didn't feel comfortable, and I felt like that's very cool. And this rehab center should have done that, right? And so they didn't do that. And then on top of that, I was so annoyed. I text Uber support. They never got back to me. I explained the freaking situation. I called the next day. No, they called me. I didn't pick up. Then I called them. I explained them the situation, and they go, well, what ride was it? Whatever. I'm like, check your fucking log system. It shows that I drove from New York, my little town, to fucking Pocono. Oh, you need to show it to us. And I explained to them, hey, the ride took an extra 2 hours, and she peed in my car. I need to be compensated for that, okay? It's like, you fucking asshole, right? And this is why I honestly feel Uber is a fucking horrible business model. If you need a little bit of money, if you happen to live in an area that gives you good, that have good ride, like what do you call it, return, like good money, do it. But like 90% of most areas suck. Uber, fuck you, you're a shitty company, right? And I hope you fucking die, you piece of shit. And Uber, like, you'll never grow. You're gonna fucking die, okay? What's gonna happen is other companies gonna take over you. And I was so fucking pissed, you know what I mean? And I called tech support. They called me. They were supposed to call me back. They never did. And I got so busy I never got back to them. But it was so disrespectful. A, from the rehab center, and then B, from Uber. Okay, I explained the situation. I said, hey, I drove a passenger to a rehab. She peed in my car. Every 15 to 20 minutes, I had to find a gas station for her to pee. She had to run into the gas station, buy beer, she needed that buzz. Worse, this is how bad it was, okay? We were literally 6 minutes from the rehab, and she was begging me to take her to a gas station for one more can of beer, okay? And that's how bad it was. Like, so drug addiction, mental health is no joke. And I felt really, really bad for her. And she told me, hey, if I think it's a 6 weeks or I forget how much. Oh, so it's a 6-week stunt, I think. And then after that, she goes to transition to a halfway house. And then after that, she gets released, right? She told me, well, if I ever come back to this town, I'll look you up. You've been so nice to me, been so kind to me. And to be honest, I felt so bad for her. I was like basically her friend through the whole ride, right? And but it wasn't really her fault. I think it was the system's fault. The fucking rehab. They need to do better. They need to call whenever a Uber driver, Lyft driver picks up a passenger, because I didn't recognize the address. So now going forward, I'm gonna say, okay, Pocono, what is it? And the problem with the fucking Uber app and Lyft app is they literally give you 20 seconds to decide. 20 seconds, right? And what happens if you don't decide, it jumps to another driver. Now, in my case, I live in a small town. It'll probably keep on bouncing back to me, right? because there's no other driver. But 20 seconds, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, $300 for 2.5 hour drive, there, 10 minutes to go pick her up, and you're broke, and you're like, wow, okay. And going back to this wallet story, I was super annoyed. I was like, shit, she doesn't have a wallet. She lost her wallet, and she needs beer all the way there. Like like she needs to drink all the way there. And I didn't want to spend money out of my own pocket because I was so broke that weekend. It was a Memorial Day weekend, I think. And I didn't want to drive someone and spend $30, $40 out of my own money to buy her beer just to earn $300. I didn't want to do that. And I was so annoyed. I was talking to my wife. I said, maybe I should just cancel this ride, get a hit from Uber, and then drive her back. So in other words, I lost 40 minutes. What's crazy was every 20 minutes, we would pull over to a gas station, and she would have to pee and buy beer and stuff like that. And the whole transaction might take anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, right? And the Uber app kept on, alerting me and her, saying, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Because we were making multiple stops. I think by the time we got to the rehab center, we probably did probably 8 to 9 stops. That's how crazy it was, right? And the rehab's Uber, should I say, okay, there's something going on here. Why are these people constantly stopping at a gas station? So I also forgot to mention she paid for a little bit of my gas, right? That was like maybe $10, because every time we stop at a gas station, I would try to refill because I didn't want to get stuck in the Poconos, not knowing where I was. And I took her to this rehab center that was in a fucking beautiful place. It was beautiful. It was like beautiful place, and in the middle of nowhere. And anyways, I apologize if this story is not told better. I just under a lot of stress. Last night I took my daughter back to her college dorm. It was an hour-and-a-half drive. I took her to the state fair with her boyfriend, and I got a little bit triggered because I used to Uber around Syracuse by the state fair area, and her and her boyfriend weren't in a good area for me to pick up. And by the time I picked them up, they were casually walking to the car, and I got kind of annoyed because I was parking in a spot that was not designated. It was kind of designated, but I didn't pull over to the proper parking spot, and cars were coming in and out, and I just didn't want to be in people's way. Anyways, guys, I might tell the story again, but maybe not. But Uber, you got to do a better job, man. Okay, you suck as a company. Okay, you're not a technology company.